Hello everyone, thank you for reaching back out to my channel. Today I'll be continuing my reading of the documents released by the FBI pursuant to Executive Order 14040, which tasked executive agencies to do what was called a declassification review of multiple documents. The first being the April 4th, 2016 communication that provides information related to Omar Al Bayoumi as well as Caysan Bin Don in their meetings and happenstanced encounter with Nawaf Al-Hazmi as well as Khalid Al-Midhar, and also asks for a review of documents that were previously withheld or classified related to the Pent bomb investigation, related to Operation Encore, as well as some documents that were classified related to the 9/11 Commission report. So today I will be starting with an interview of an individual named Caysan Bin Don. This individual was with Omar Al Bayoumi. He traveled with Omar Al Bayoumi from San Diego to Los Angeles to the consulate, and during those travels, once they reached Los Angeles after going to the Saudi Consulate where Omar Al Bayoumi met Saudi Consulate officials, they traveled to the Mediterranean restaurant, the restaurant in which Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar had a chance meeting with Omar Al Bayoumi. This document, specifically this interview with Caysan Bin Don, was conducted on April 20th of 2004. The only reason I know it is a 9/11 Commission report interview is because the next document that I will be reading specifically states that. This document is heavily redacted, as you can see, so we'll do our best, like always, to read parts to make sure that it is as clear as possible. So today I'm going to look at doing hopefully a longer form reading, because I know the next couple of documents are interviews of individuals, either Caysan Bin Don or individuals that worked at the Saudi Consulate, whose names are redacted. But yeah, so hopefully I can read through for about an hour. Individuals who listen to this video can either read along with me, can listen along while they do other work. So yeah, so that's kind of how I am going to go about it today. I know my previous videos are usually from 10 to 25 minutes long, so let's see if I can get through more of this material in a quicker pace that way. So let's begin. On April 20th of 2004, the following investigation was conducted by certain individuals in Los Angeles. Caysan Bin Don, also known as, well, we also know his name to be Isamu Dyson, as well as Clayton Morgan. He has a telephone number that we don't know, was advised of the identities of the interviewing agents. Mr. Bin Don was asked if he could recall traveling with Omar Al Bayoumi to Los Angeles from San Diego, California during January of 2000 to visit the King Fahd Mosque in Culver City, California, and other businesses. Mr. Bin Don stated he did remember this trip with Omar Al Bayoumi. Heavily redacted paragraphs here, so let's skip down here. As for the trip to Los Angeles, Al Bayoumi asked Bin Don either 1 or 2 days before the two of them actually traveled to Los Angeles if Bin Don would accompany Al Bayoumi to the Saudi Arabian consulate. Mr. Bin Don told the present interviewers that Al Bayoumi specifically asked for assistance with his I-94. The I-94 is an immigration and naturalization form that specifies the type of visa and length of time that the holder is allowed to remain in the United States. Mr. Bin Don said that the trip to Los Angeles occurred on a regular workday and was not on a Friday or the weekend. At this time, Bin Don had known Al Bayoumi for about 1 month. Mr. Bin Don stated that Al Bayoumi drove his automobile on the consulate to the consulate in Los Angeles. Before arriving at the consulate, Al Bayoumi stopped at a photographic shop on Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles to get photographs of him suitable for a passport. Mr. Bin Don recalls that Al Bayoumi pulled up his vehicle to a gated entrance to a parking garage that was under the Saudi Consulate. Al Bayoumi spoke in Arabic on the intercom microphone at the gate, and the gate was open, and Al Bayoumi drove into the garage and parked. They parked in a normal parking space and walked towards the reception area. Both Bin Don and Al Bayoumi were dressed in Islamic clothing. The reception area was accessible from the garage. As they approached this area, three men dressed in Western business suits walked out of the reception area and greeted Al Bayoumi. The conversation was in Arabic and only lasted for a brief period of time. Mr. Bin Don stated that he considered this happenstance meeting and that the three men from the consulate were only being polite to one another as brothers. Mr. Bin Don and Al Bayoumi then entered the reception area. There was no receptionist present, and Al Bayoumi used a telephone in the reception area to announce his presence. Mr. Bin Don described the reception area as plain, with a few seats, as airport-type metal detector and an airport-type X-ray machine. Mr. Bin Don said that shortly after the call was placed by Al Bayoumi, a Middle Eastern male dressed in a Western business suit with a full beard, 2-fist length, came out of the reception room and greeted Al Bayoumi in English. Al Bayoumi introduced the consular employee to Bin Don, but Mr. Bin Don no longer recalls the employee's name. Al Bayoumi and the employee spoke briefly about Al Bayoumi's interest in obtaining religious materials, including Qurans from the consulate. Also mentioned in Mr. Bin Don's presence was the fact that Al Bayoumi had not been at the consulate for at least 3 months. On the drive up to Los Angeles, Al Bayoumi told Mr. Bin Don that he, that is, Al Bayoumi, routinely traveled to the consulate to obtain Islamic religious materials. Mr. Bin Don then stated that he ran into the consular employee at a shopping mall in Anaheim, California within the last 6 months. It looks like these paragraphs more than likely speak about that context, about that meeting, but we don't get that information. And Mr. Bin Don was asked about the rest of the visit to the Saudi Consulate. Mr. Bin Don said that Al Bayoumi followed the consulate employee into the offices of the consulate while Bin Don waited in the reception area. After some period of time, Al Bayoumi reappeared carrying a box of Qurans and other religious materials. Mr. Bin Don said that this religious literature was used at the El Cajon, California mosque. Al Bayoumi, with the sponsorship of a well-to-do Muslim, was helping to establish a mosque. Mr. Bin Don and Al Bayoumi left the consulate by returning to Al Bayoumi's automobile. At Mr. Bin Don's suggestion, they drove to the King Fahd Mosque in Culver City, California, which was not far from the Saudi Consulate's location in West Los Angeles. Mr. Bin Don explained that they prayed at the masjid. After their prayers, Al Bayoumi suggested that they both go to a nearby halal restaurant. Al Bayoumi drove from the King Fahd Mosque to the restaurant, which Bin Don recalls as being located on Venice Boulevard in Culver City. They found a parking space in front of what Al Bayoumi said was a restaurant. They went inside and determined that this business was not a restaurant but a halal meat market. The proprietor of the market told Al Bayoumi that there was a halal restaurant a short walk from the market. Al Bayoumi and Bin Don left the market and walked to the restaurant, which is named the Mediterranean Cafe. Mr. Bin Don noted that they did not have to move the automobile. Mr. Bin Don is now very familiar with the Mediterranean Cafe and had patronized the establishment on the day of this interview. Mr. Bin Don said that he showed the FBI agents both businesses during a previous interview. Mr. Bin Don and Al Bayoumi ordered their food over a counter in a fashion similar to a fast food restaurant. Mr. Bin Don stated that they sat in an alcove to wait while their food was prepared. While waiting at the table, Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar walked into the restaurant. They were speaking Arabic and ordering coffee. Al Bayoumi overheard them. That's interesting. Mr. Bin Don said that Al Bayoumi is very friendly and immediately addressed the two in Arabic and invited them to sit with Bin Don and Al Bayoumi. Al Bayoumi asked Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar their names and where they were from. They told Al Bayoumi that they were from Saudi Arabia. The conversation was in Arabic, but Al Bayoumi occasionally translated the responses of Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar into English. Mr. Bin Don said that Al Bayoumi offered to buy a meal for the two in the Islamic tradition. Al-Hazmi told Al Bayoumi and Bin Don that he was from Mecca. When brought back to the subject of hand, Mr. Bin Don said that Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar told Al Bayoumi that they were living in an apartment nearby. Al-Hazmi went on to tell Al Bayoumi that they had just arrived in the United States and were studying English. Mr. Bin Don said that the exchange was vague to him, since he only spoke limited Arabic. And Mr. Bin Don recalls that at this late date, Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar told Al Bayoumi that they were unhappy in Los Angeles, and Al Bayoumi invited them to visit San Diego to see if they would want to move to San Diego. Al Bayoumi and Al-Hazmi apparently exchanged telephone numbers. Mr. Bin Don was asked if he specifically recalls that Al-Hazmi had a telephone or whether Al Bayoumi only provided his telephone number. Mr. Bin Don could not recall the exact sequence. After about 30 minutes, Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar left the restaurant. Mr. Bin Don said that they did not have a motor vehicle. He does not recall the direction that they walked after leaving the Mediterranean Cafe. Mr. Bin Don stated empathetically that he had no information from Al Bayoumi in advance that they would meet Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar at the Mediterranean Cafe. He further said that the meeting was purely a coincidence, and that Al Bayoumi's friendly nature was the reason that Al Bayoumi showed an interest in the situation of Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar. Mr. Bin Don and Al Bayoumi then left the restaurant and returned to the King Fahd Mosque for the sunset prayer. Al Bayoumi did not offer to take Al-Hazmi and Midhar. Mr. Bin Don and Al Bayoumi then left the restaurant and returned. Al Bayoumi did not offer to take Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar to the mosque, nor did Bin Don see them at the mosque for the sunset prayer. Bin Don and Al Bayoumi left Los Angeles before the evening prayer. The next contact with Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar was at a party that Al Bayoumi organized. The party was held in an apartment occupied by Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar. Mr. Bin Don described the attendees at the party as many people from the community. Mr. Bin Don described the behavior of Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar as normal and that they both appeared to be at ease. Mr. Bin Don videotaped the party at the request of Al Bayoumi, using Al Bayoumi's video camera. Some of the guests at the party did not want to be videotaped, and Bin Don assumed that this was for religious reasons. Mr. Bin Don said that for most of the party he remained in the kitchen area. During the party, based on what little conversation Bin Don could understand, Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar told the others that they were students. Mr. Bin Don said that everyone at the party was a brother, that he recognized from attending prayer services at the ICSD. Mr. Bin Don's statement to the 9/11 Commission and the commissioners have been paraphrased in part is as follows. Oh, it's entirely redacted. All right. So that looks like that's the end of that report. Oh, and I said that that was the only reason I knew that that was a 9/11 Commission interview was because of the following document, but actually it does say it right here. Next document is another interview of Caysan Bin Don concerning Omar Al Bayoumi. This interview was a telecall, or not a telecall. This interview was on the 3rd of August in 2004. Well, let's begin. On the 3rd of August 2004, Caysan Bin Don, aka Osama Alva Dyson, was interviewed concerning his visit to the Royal Consulate General of Saudi Arabia in Los Angeles, January of 2000, with Omar Al Bayoumi. After their visit to the consulate, Bin Don and Al Bayoumi met the Flight 77 hijackers Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar at a nearby restaurant known as the Mediterranean Cafe. This was Bin Don's third interview about these meetings, which included one by the 9/11 Commission on April 20th, 2004. The reports of the previous interviews are in reference serials. The purpose of this third interview was to show Bin Don a photograph of an individual, an administrative employee at the Saudi Consulate, who was originally from somewhere, matched the description that Bin Don previously provided to the Bureau of a consulate employee that Bayoumi had met for the purpose of obtaining Islamic books as per reference. Now that is documented in that interview up there. It was the individual that had a 2-fist length beard, in which Omar Al Bayoumi went into a back room with and came out holding multiple Qurans. It is known that this individual is somebody and regularly passes out inflammatory Islamic material or literature at the consulate, which is above and beyond his normal responsibility to only pass out copies of the Quran. Wow. So Omar Al Bayoumi was meeting with this individual who is known to regularly pass out inflammatory Islamic literature above his job duties. Bin Don had previously been shown a California driver's license photograph of an individual, but he could not identify him. However, this photograph does not accurately depict this person, his appearance, since the photograph has his hair as dark and not gray. He does not show the extent of his balding, and his beard is too short. The closed photograph from this immigration file, which was shown to Bin Don, is how this person currently looks. During this third interview, when Bin Don was showed this immigration photograph, Bin Don immediately said that it was a person he met at the consulate, although he did not know this person's name. Bin Don also reported that he had seen this person at a Middle Eastern clothing store in late 2003 or early 2004 and told them that he had been interviewed by the FBI. Bin Don maintained that the meeting with the hijackers after his and Al Bayoumi's visit to the consulate was strictly a chance encounter. Bin Don had no information as to whether this person would have known the hijackers and does not believe that there was any connection between the encounter with the hijackers at the restaurant and their visit to the consulate. Further details of the interview are documented in the enclosed FD 302. It looks like this individual that they are discussing, he will be interviewed in the near future in accordance with some investigation, I imagine, and will be asked about his meeting with Al Bayoumi and knowledge of the hijackers. And that is the end of the Caysan Bin Don interview. We read on. So it looks like this might be the interview of that individual above, the consular employee who met with Omar Al Bayoumi the day that Omar Al Bayoumi met with Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar in a chance encounter. So let's see what we get from this information. Now that necessarily, or it may not be the person, but just based on the prior documents and how they have been released, we will see. So on the 25th of September 2008, this person, an individual, was contacted on a public sidewalk on the corner of Charger Boulevard and Balboa Avenue in San Diego. After advising the identities of the interviewing agents at the nature of the interview, they needed time to attend prayer at the Islamic Center of San Diego, also called the Masjid Abu Bakr, and agreed to meet with the agents later that day. On this same date, an interview took place with an individual in his apartment at his request. After casual conversation, this individual voluntarily provided the following information. The end of December 1999 noted by this individual at least 10 days of Ramadan. Omar Al Bayoumi asked an individual to host two visiting sheikhs from Saudi Arabia at his apartment. He described these sheikhs as two well-known scholars of Islam who had traveled from Saudi Arabia to San Diego to visit and attend the ICSD. This person could not provide the names of any further information regarding the sheikhs who stayed with him in his apartment for the last 10 days of the Ramadan season. This person believed that Al Bayoumi asked him to host the sheikhs because this person was single, living alone in an apartment, and the apartment was in close proximity to the ICSD. This person noted that he had arrived in San Diego at the end of October 1999, and after socializing at the ICSD, Al Bayoumi approached him regarding hosting the sheikhs. This person denied receiving or making telephone calls to or from Fahad Al-Tumeri, another individual, Omar Al Bayoumi, another individual also known by the name of Anwar Al-Laki, another individual during the time period of December 1999. On the 25th of September 2008, this person originally stated that he had no idea who made the telephone calls mentioned above, taking place during the time period of 1999. This person later attributed the telephone calls mentioned above, taking place during the time period of December 1999, to his former roommate. A further interview, this person again changed his answer regarding the telephone calls mentioned above, taking place during the time period of December 1999, by attributing the telephone calls to the two visiting sheikhs mentioned above. He did not give the sheikhs permission to use his telephone, nor did he remember seeing or overhearing the two sheikhs using his telephone in the apartment. On September 26, 2008, the individual voluntarily agreed to a second interview with the same interviewing agents, which took place in a public place outside the Starbucks coffee shop on the corner of Balboa Avenue and Jeunesse, San Diego. During this interview, this person attributed the telephone calls mentioned above, taking place during the time period of December 1999, to Khalid Al-Midhar. Khalid Al-Midhar and Nawaf Al-Hazmi were identified as two of the 9/11 hijackers on American Airlines Flight 77. They both resided in San Diego for a period of time during the year 2000. Yes. This person remembered Khalid Al-Midhar using his telephone at his apartment to make a call on two occasions. The first time Khalid Al-Midhar made a call, he paid in cash for the call. At that time, Khalid Al-Midhar told this individual he was calling his wife in Yemen. The second call was not agreed to He remembered an incident where he had to confront his roommate at the time with an unexplained charge after receiving a telephone statement for a 30-minute telephone call to Yemen. He knew that Khalid Al-Midhar had made the second call from the telephone to the country of Yemen because this person was familiar with the area code of Yemen. This person was also upset with the amount of the telephone bill, and he could not recall the amount of a single call or the approximate total of the bill. This person claimed that he did not know Fahad al-Tamari, and that he only knew him as a guy working at the Saudi embassy. They understood from Omar Al Bayoumi that the two hijackers wanted to move from Los Angeles, California to San Diego, California. He stated that Al Bayoumi drove the hijackers down from Los Angeles to San Diego. He did not accompany Al Bayoumi when he drove the hijackers from Los Angeles to San Diego. And after arriving in San Diego, Al Bayoumi told this individual to help the hijackers get around and take them to drink coffee. This person accompanied the two hijackers around San Diego because they did not read or write English and needed assistance in comprehending the locality. This individual had the hijackers over at his apartment on a regular basis for dinner and to socialize. Al Bayoumi told this individual that Al Bayoumi was responsible for the two hijackers. He understood the hijackers were just two students from Los Angeles. This person never assisted or saw the hijackers attend school. This person noted that Khalid Al-Midhar would regularly pay for both Khalid Al-Midhar and Nawaf Al-Hazmi. This person again informed that he would regularly have Khalid Al-Midhar and Nawaf Al-Hazmi over at his apartment to socialize, and that he attended a dinner party for Al-Midhar and Al-Hazmi at their apartment located across a large street from his apartment. The party was hosted by Omar Al Bayoumi. Al Bayoumi went in person to this individual's apartment, in which Al Bayoumi personally invited this individual to the party for Al-Midhar and Al-Hazmi. This person was asked if he was aware of Al Bayoumi hosting the party for the hijackers as an introduction to the Muslim community, or did the party serve as a farewell by the Muslim community to the hijackers. This person claimed that he did not know why Al Bayoumi hosted a party for the hijackers. He denied any participation or knowledge of the terrorist attacks which took place in reference to the United States. This person denied participation or knowledge of any future terrorist attacks towards citizens of the United States. This person also denied knowledge of terrorist activities, particularly in reference to Khalid Al-Midhar and Nawaf Al-Hazmi. This person socialized with the two hijackers on a number of occasions, but he could not recall or give agents an example of what they talked about. This guy played soccer with the hijackers at a park near the ICSD. After this person saw the photos of the two hijackers on television after the attacks of 9/11, he said he was so distraught that he vomited. He also claimed that he became ill because he did not expect the hijackers to do that. He also further stated that he never thought the hijackers could do something of that nature because they were not smart. This person claims that Omar Al Bayoumi brought the hijackers over to his apartment in March of 2000. Now, he was focused on the month of March as the month that he met the hijackers through Al Bayoumi. He had them over at the apartment for socialization, played soccer with them, and took them to Starbucks coffee shop. He stated that he was not protecting anyone, and that he made the statement, all of the people are talking about live outside, and then made the statement, all of the people that we are talking about live outside the U.S., and then noted that he was the only one left here. This person went to the Masjid al-Ribat for the first time on a Saturday shortly after the hijackers arrived in San Diego. He could not remember with whom or how he got to the Masjid al-Ribat. He denied driving or accompanying the hijackers to the gathering. He did recall that it was a gathering and dinner for people originally from Yemen or of the Yemeni descent who were living in San Diego. Anwar al-Awlaki had invited this person and all the attendees for gathering for dinner. I remembered meeting Anwar al-Awlaki at the gathering because he was the Imam Masjid al-Ribat. It was important for him to go to this gathering because of an opportunity to socialize with fellow Yemeni people living in San Diego, California. He could not remember if anyone told him to go to the Masjid al-Ribat in order to meet the Imam, which was Anwar al-Awlaki. He remembered meeting mainly with Mokhtar Abdullah at this gathering. Mokhtar Abdullah and this individual had previously become acquainted at the ICSD. After the gathering, Mokhtar invited him over to his apartment, which was in close proximity to the mosque. Mokhtar Abdullah and this individual read the Quran at the apartment. The talk was all in the Arabic language. Samir Abdun, who was Mokhtar's roommate, was at the apartment. There were others at the apartment, but he could not recall their names. This person claimed that nothing took place except for the reading of the Quran. This person and the two hijackers, Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar, visited the San Diego Zoo in February or March of 2000. This person's roommate at the time could not attend the outing at that particular day and asked this person to take the hijackers to the zoo because he had an annual pass to enter the San Diego wild animal and zoo parks. Now, he remembered that he and the hijackers rode the guided tour bus at the zoo and stayed a total of a couple hours visiting the San Diego Zoo. He did not know why the hijackers were interested in seeing the San Diego Zoo. The last time that this individual talked to Omar Al Bayoumi was right before he left for England to attend college, which was approximately in August of 2001. He acknowledged it was a big honor to have the two before-mentioned Saudi sheikhs stay with him because Omar Al Bayoumi picked him after recently arriving in San Diego. And that is the end of that document. Let's continue on. On Thursday, November 12th of 2015, at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, another individual was interviewed. We don't get their date of birth, we don't get their social security number, we don't get their place of birth, but they were met in the conference room at the Anaheim Marriott Suites in Garden Grove, California, with the FBI, FBI San Diego, Homeland Security Investigator Analyst, FBI New York Supervisory Intelligence Analyst, and FBI New York something. NYPD, who identified themselves present and presented their credentials. Now, it looks like these investigators first inquired about this person they were interviewing's health. This person stated that he was recovering from a slight cold, but that the cold should not prevent him from participating in the interview. This person advised that other than the cold, he felt well. And investigators advised this person that they appreciated his participation in the interview and that he voluntarily provided the following information. This person lives in Anaheim and is unemployed. A friend found him employment at a school located in San Diego. Now, he stated that he worked there on a one-year contract and that at the conclusion of the year his contract was not renewed. Since then, he found occasional short-term work assisting students and tutoring. This person states that his lack of steady employment caused financial difficulty. Now, investigators asked why he continued to work at the CKSALA in an administrative capacity when he had a degree. He stated that visa issues impacted his ability to find work in the United States. Now, he originally hoped employment with the CKSALA would assist him gaining permanent path to residency in the U.S. and full-time employment. He stated that his educational background, work ethic, and foreign language skills helped him get a job at the CKSALA. He states that he is a fluent speaker of, it looks like, multiple languages or one language. He also understands and can speak some of other languages, and he demonstrated some of those language skills for investigators. He stated that the skills resulted in him being assigned to translation work at the CKSALA. Investigators asked this person how he became to work at the CKSALA. He stated that he arrived in the U.S. On a certain year or date to study and then later found work. He stated that the majority of assignments at the CKSALA focused on responding to mail, correspondence on behalf of the consulate, and translation issues. He stated that he worked in his office on the second floor of the consulate, mostly by himself, and was directed by the CKSALA leadership to handle inquiries from non-Saudi citizens who transacted business with the consulate. This person generally did not handle interactions with Saudi citizens who sought assistance. He stated that Saudi citizens who came or called the consulate had direct access to Saudi employees of the consulate. These Saudi employees of the consulate treated Saudi citizens who came in for assistance with extra special care. This person stated that Saudi citizens who visited the consulate would go to a special section of the building for service or meet the leadership of the consulate elsewhere in the building. He stated that business and assistance to Saudi citizens occurred outside of his awareness, as he spent most of his time in his office alone, and he stated on some days he never came out of his office until it was time to go home. He also added that the CKSALA officials did not mix freely with non-Saudi citizens or non-Saudi employees of the consulate. He said that Saudis kept to themselves. This person was presented with a series of photographs, and he looked at the photographs and stated he did not recognize anyone. Now, it looks like one of the investigators pointed to Fahad Al-Tumeri's photo and asked if he recognized or knew Tumeri. Now, this person looked at the photo again and said Tumeri looked different in the photo, that he knew Tumeri when he was the Imam of the King Fahd Mosque. He also stated that the real name of the King Fahd Mosque was the Imamiyya Mosque, which was sponsored by the Imamiyya Society. He added that he knew Tumeri well from his time at the KFM and that Tumeri was a good, kind, and gentle person. He stated that Tumeri was so gentle that if he saw an ant crossing a road, he would cross to the other side of the street to avoid stepping on the ant. He was asked if he ever heard any negative information about Fahad al-Tumeri, to which he replied he had not. He added that Tumeri was the only person from the King Fahd Mosque who stayed in contact with him after he was terminated. Tumeri kept in touch with this person, sometimes by phone, calling occasionally until recently, particularly on holidays to check in on him to see if he was well. He was asked when the last of these phone calls occurred, and he stated that the last time Tumeri contacted him was approximately in 2012. While he stated that he had a good relationship with Tumeri, and Tumeri invited him to conduct prayers on Friday, once a month at the King Fahd Mosque. He was asked if he recognized the name of an individual that we don't have access to. He stated he did not know this person, but added that he knew who we were asking about. He stated that he knew his father, who worked for the Saudi Educational Mission in Houston, and he stated that any contact he might have had with this person would have occurred when he was a very young child. He stated that he knew this person's father and that his father was a good man. Now, the interviewee, this person, was shown photographs of Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar. These were the same photos he had been shown at the beginning of the interview when he did not recognize them. He stated he did not know either of them in this time at either the CKSA LA or the King Fahd Mosque. He stated he does not recall ever meeting them, though he knows who they are now. He states that he does not believe in terrorism and that terrorism is forbidden in Islam. He was asked if he knew anyone who helped Hazmi or Midhar or any of the 9/11 hijackers. He answered that he did not, but if he did, he would tell us. Next, he was shown a photograph of Caysan Bin Don, the same photo he was shown earlier in the interview, and stated he did not recognize, or stated he did recognize the individual as a person who approached him in an Islamic clothing store in the Los Angeles area after 9/11. Okay, so this is the individual Caysan Bin Don stated that he was a Saudi Consulate official or employee who Caysan Bin Don saw a few years later and told that he was being interviewed by the FBI. He stated Bin Don, and told that Bin Don had been approached by the FBI and asked questions about 9/11 and the hijackers. So yeah, Bin Don told this individual that he was questioned about the 9/11 hijackers by the FBI. He stated that Bin Don asked, of course we don't get any information. Let's start at Omar Al Bayoumi. He was shown a photograph of Omar Al Bayoumi. On the second viewing, he recognized him as a man who accompanied Caysan Bin Don to the CKSA LA, or the Saudi Consulate in LA. He stated that Bayoumi was a Saudi citizen who was treated with great respect inside the consulate. Bayoumi was well regarded by the people in the consulate and held a very high status. When he entered the building, this person stated that Bayoumi's status was higher than many of the Saudi persons in charge of the consulate. He stated that he first met this person when he was called. He stated he first met this person when he was called to the consulate's office to provide Bayoumi and another individual some literature about Islam and Islamic religious practice. He stated that these pamphlets and books are on display in the consulate for anyone to take. He stated the consulate gave them out for free. He also stated that he and Bayoumi spoke for a brief time and that Bayoumi took the pamphlets and left. He does not recall what they spoke about. Meeting with Omar Al Bayoumi and Caysan Bin Don in the Saudi Consulate in LA. This person was asked if he remembered speaking to Bayoumi by phone, and he responded that he spoke to many people and does not recall speaking to Bayoumi. He was asked if he recalled the first time he met Bayoumi. He responded that he saw him once or twice, but that the meeting in the consulate was the first meeting he remembers. He added that the meeting only lasted a few minutes, and investigators asked why he brought books and pamphlets to Bayoumi and Bin Don if they were on display and available for all to take. And he was unable to provide an answer to this question. He was asked if he sat down to speak to Bayoumi and Bin Don, and he replied that the meeting took place by the exterior secretary's desk area and that he does not recall sitting down to speak to Bayoumi or Bin Don. He added that people came in and out of the consulate all the time, but he rarely saw anyone because he sat in his office alone most of the time. He was asked what he could recall about meeting Bin Don and Bayoumi that day and answered that Bin Don was, we don't get that information, who he later met again at the King Fahd Mosque. On the stay at the consulate with Bayoumi, this person was called by either head of the Saudi Affairs Department in the consulate or his secretary and asked to offer some literature about Islam to Bayoumi's friend. We don't get that information, but it came from somebody. Recall that this came from, he was asked if he ever met with anyone like this before, and he had never met with anyone like he met with Bayoumi and Bin Don. Now we get into the Mediterranean restaurant. This person was asked if he knew of the Mediterranean restaurant on Venice Boulevard. He stated he did not and added that it was owned, or he did, and added that it was owned by a friend of his. He was asked if he ever ate at the restaurant, and he stated that he had eaten there many times. He is asked if any of the other employees of the Saudi Consulate ate at that restaurant, and he stated that the Saudi employees at the mosque would never eat there. He added that the Saudis kept to themselves and brought their own food from home or ate together. If the Saudis wanted to order food, they would use a high-end Lebanese restaurant in Los Angeles to cater for them. He was asked about the day Bin Don came to the consulate with Omar Al Bayoumi. He was asked if he directed Bayoumi or Bin Don to the restaurant, and he stated he could not recall what they spoke about. But he was asked if it was possible that he could have recommended the Mediterranean restaurant on Venice Boulevard as the location for Al Bayoumi and Bin Don to go and eat. But he stated that he could not recall right now, but it was possible. He added that his friend has sold the Mediterranean restaurant on Venice Boulevard and his nearby store and made a lot of money. Now we get into Anwar Al-Awlaki. Now it looks like an investigator or an interviewer pointed to a photo of Anwar Nasser Al-Awlaki, the same photo that was shown at the beginning of the interview, and asked if this person recognized Al-Awlaki. He stated that he did not know who the man was, and he asked if he ever heard of Al-Awlaki. He stated he did not know who Al-Awlaki was until approximately 2004 when he read about Al-Awlaki in an Arabic language newspaper named Al-Sharq Al-Aswat, which mentioned Al-Awlaki. Investigators asked this person to explain this since there was so much media coverage of Al-Awlaki and the events of 9/11 and the hijackers, Hazmi and Midhar's activity in Los Angeles, San Diego, and the KFM. He stated he does not have television in his house, and he was asked if anyone he knew ever discussed these issues, and he stated that no one ever spoke about these people to him. He was asked about how this was possible and how were we, the investigators, supposed to believe that an educated man like himself who had personal contact with the location visited by 9/11 hijackers Nawaf Al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midhar would never have heard anyone speak about the people involved in the 9/11 attacks. He stated that of course he knew about the incident at the World Trade Center and that all Muslims disapprove of this type of event. He stated that he read the 9/11 Commission report. He was then asked if he recalled if anyone he knew met the hijackers or spoke about meeting to them. He replied that no one he knew met or helped the people involved in the accident at the World Trade Center. The investigators informed this person that they were investigating the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, not an accident. This person was shown a photograph of another individual and was asked if he remembered ever hearing, meeting, or speaking to them. He stated that he did not recognize the photograph or remember speaking to them and was asked if he remembered the name at all. He stated he did not and again stated he had met so many people in his job at the Saudi Consulate in LA that he could not remember them all. He was asked if he ever recalled this person on the phone, and he responded he may have, but because he's called so many people, but he could not recall now. He was also shown a photograph of another individual and asked if he remembered ever meeting or speaking to them, and he stated he did not recognize the photo or remember speaking to them. Now we get into his employment at the Saudi Consulate. Investigators asked this person to describe how he came to be released from employment at the Saudi Consulate. He stated he was terminated from employment at the KFM with no explanation as to why he was being let go. He stated that one day he received a letter stating his services would no longer be required and that this practice was unusual because he was being terminated before the mandatory retirement age. At this point, he began to choke up and get teary-eyed. He stated he was let go with no pension, no money, no payment upon his release. He stated that when former close friends he worked with at the Saudi Consulate saw him at holiday events, they ignored him. He stated that no one other than Fahad Al-Tumari has called him to check on him to see how he is or check on his personal welfare. He stated that he is personally hurt by this. He also added that his termination has caused financial difficulty for him and his family. He stated that he had helped numerous people at the consulate gain college degrees, helping them prepare college term papers, tutoring them for their exams, helping them with applications for school. He stated that he never asked for compensation for this. This person wiped away tears while he told this story, his voice choked with emotion. He said that within his time at the Saudi Consulate, 6 people acquired master's degrees and 3 individuals gained doctoral degrees with his assistance. Investigators informed this individual that they were concerned that he had not been forthcoming in the interview and avoided providing complete answers to certain questions. This person is an articulate man who displayed facility for remembering specific events and details related to the questions asked, but was unable to remember other matters which he should be likely to recall. This person's statements regarding have never discussed matters and never have heard anyone speak about the people involved in the 9/11 attacks lacks credibility. I wish we had this information, but we don't. This person was informed by the interviewing investigators of the importance of telling the truth. This person, when told that, became visibly nervous. Investigators offered him the opportunity to meet again the next day. Should he recall any additional details regarding the questions, or should he want to clarify any matters discussed? He stated he would think about it and would contact the investigators. He called investigators later in the day and informed that he would like to discuss the matters on Friday, November 13th, 2015, the next day. So this is the interview of the same individual that was conducted on the following day, Friday, November 13th of 2015 in Anaheim again, California, specifically Garden Grove. Let's start down here. This is just same text from the other interview. So, the person began the discussion by taking a piece of paper and a pen from a bag that he brought with him and asked if he could write down the names of the FBI personnel present. They all agreed and also presented him with their business cards. Upon receipt of the business cards, he stopped writing down the names. He asked if he could clarify some matters he had discussed the prior day and stated that he spent a certain amount of years and 3 months working for the Saudi Consulate and felt that he had lived and worked as a semi-diplomat, and he feels today that he lived up to the standard of a diplomat. He also added that his wife is not aware that he had contact with U.S. government officials. Investigators asked this individual whether King Fahd Mosque employees ever asked anyone at the consulate of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to help newly arrived Saudi exchange students or other foreign travelers. He recalls that one time Mohammed Muhanna, who worked at the Saudi Consulate of LA and the KFM, called the Saudi Consulate Consul General to ask this person to meet with 2 people. He stated that the Consul General misunderstood this request and it was not related to the September 11th attacks. He stated that Muhanna and Tumeri were close associates of the KFM. Fahad al-Tumeri was the imam of the mosque, but Tumeri never contacted this person to coordinate between people and added that they both always showed respect. Omar Al Bayoumi and Caysan Bin Don's visit to the KFM. This person was asked if he remembered any other details about Bayoumi and Bin Don's visit to the King Fahd Mosque. This person stated that Bayoumi had more clout at the Saudi consulate than either Muhanna or Tumeri and added that Bayoumi was considered higher in rank than the consular general. On the day that Bayoumi and Bin Don came to the KFM, Bayoumi may have asked this person for the location of a nearby halal restaurant. If he had, he would have recommended the Mediterranean Grill, a restaurant on Venice Boulevard. This is the location Omar Al Bayoumi told investigators he met Hazmi and Midhar for the first time and invited them to visit San Diego. This Mediterranean Grill was the only restaurant that this person knew at the time in the area, which had a grocery store with a halal meat and is also a restaurant. He recalled that the owner of the Mediterranean Gourmet restaurant, circa 2000, was his friend. We don't get his name, unfortunately, and he reiterated it as he did in the prior interview that the Saudis from the Saudi consulate never went to the Mediterranean Grill. They would cater food from a nearby Lebanese restaurant. Also, married Saudis like Tumeri would not have gone to the restaurant. He cannot explain why he would recommend the Mediterranean Grill restaurant to someone as important as Bayoumi, as it was not a place the other Saudis would have patronized. He stated that many people knew that this person ate at the Mediterranean restaurant and he knew how to get there, and he would have told Bayoumi how to travel there. He was specifically asked if Tumeri told him to tell Bayoumi to go to the restaurant, or if Tumeri asked him to provide Bayoumi with direction to the restaurant. He stated he did not recall Tumeri asking him to do either. He was asked to provide any other detail he might recall on whether he was asked to meet Bayoumi and Bin Don, and he stated that the day Bayoumi and another individual visited the consulate, Bayoumi and someone came to the Saudi section on the first floor and was called down to bring a packet of literature on Islam that he had been asked to prepare to convert. He says he clearly remembers this. Before Bayoumi arrived, the Saudi section of the consulate called this person, telling him to ready the packet for Bayoumi's companion. He remembers that he stood with Bayoumi and Bin Don and greeted them. He spoke to Bayoumi in Arabic, and Bayoumi inquired how he was doing, and unfortunately we don't get that. The meeting occurred near midday. He states that he did not know Bayoumi by name, and at the time he had to ask the Saudi section afterward who Bayoumi was. He was asked if he recalled or knew anything about an individual. He said he did not, but then added he may have met them at the KFM. He stated that his children and his wife never knew Bayoumi. He was asked if he ever had spoken by phone or email with any of the people he had asked him about. He denied having spoken with certain individuals. He did note that a lot of people would call him at home and work and ask for favors, such as speeding up their visa applications. At work, he also received a lot of calls from religious centers and schools. People called him because he knew he was known for getting things done. He was known as far as New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, and New York for giving out Qurans from the Saudi Consulate in LA. When this person left his job at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Consulate, he did receive a stipend. The Consul General at the time and a visiting Saudi prince gave him some financial help. After he left the consulate, his wife got a teaching job for 3 or 4 years. Now they get paid about $500 per month on Social Security. He stated that during his years working at the Saudi Consulate, he earned approximately a certain amount in salary. He stayed at the consulate for a length of time, even though he has a degree, because he felt he needed the visa to remain in the United States. He has sometimes wondered whether it was a curse or blessing to be at the consulate. He felt that his treatment at the consulate was worse than a slave without an education, and that he survived this time in his life on his own personal strength. Saudi consulate leadership asked him to perform tasks which he considered beneath him, such as something on the Saudi National Celebration Day event. He performed this task for 2 years, but then in the 3rd year he refused. He apologized to the vice consul, Dr. Sami Al-Ibrahim, and told Dr. Al-Ibrahim he would not do it. He was concerned about refusing Dr. Ibrahim's wife he was concerned about refusing because Dr. Ibrahim's wife is related to the late Saudi King Fahad. About 3 years ago, Mr. Zarani, who was first introduced to Dr. Ibrahim, told this person that Dr. Ibrahim said that this person had refused and it was a shame. Ibrahim conjectured that this may be the reason why he was probably let go, I would imagine. Time in Saudi Arabia. In 1981, this individual went to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for 7 months to receive training in assisting Saudi students who would travel to and study in the United States. When asked if he had ever been approached by Saudi government officials, recruited, or received training by Saudi intelligence services at the time, he stated he was non-committal and did not answer the question. Wow. All right, let's continue on to the documents. We were reading further. We're about 48 minutes into the video. Let's continue. Maybe 1 or 2 more. I might be continuing this way for the foreseeable future. So this is another results of an interview. Looks like it has to do with Midhar Muhammad Al-Midhar Zaid, aka Mokhtar Muhammad Abdullah. On July 19th of 2007, Ryder and Buffalo JTTF members of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement met with an individual at his place of business in Niagara Falls. He stated that he does not go by any other names, including that he was born in a certain place, immigrated to Toronto, Canada. When he questioned regarding the details of such immigration, he became visibly upset and stopped talking and began to cry. Ryder surmised that the experience of leaving this country or place during a certain time would have been particularly traumatic, and they gave him a moment to collect himself and moved on to other questions. This person stated that his father's name and also his mother's name, and that both his father and mother are UK citizens, normally residing in London. However, they're currently in a certain place, living with his younger wife, last name unknown, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. In total, this person stated that his father had 4 wives and 20 children, and advised that he did not know the name of the other 2 wives, and that in addition he felt uncomfortable providing such information as he did not feel it related to him. He added that this mother and father had 10 total children. There are 4 sons in order from oldest to youngest. Let's go down here. He stated that he is ethnically Arab, but his family and their ancestors had been living in this place, or a place, for maybe 500 years. And he also added that his family was probably originally from Yemen, as there are a number of Yemenis who have the same name. During the beginning of the interview, this person called the Department of Homeland Security interpreter, asked them, and then passed the phone to them. So it looks like this information here is basically stating that the person they were interviewing potentially did speak this language, but the interpreter says that. So let's see. So the interpreter asked if he spoke a language, if he was, I would imagine, a certain ethnicity, and where he was from originally. He answered in a certain language, stating that he did speak this language and was something and grew up in a certain ethnicity and grew up in a small town in the south of this place. The interpreter stated to writers that from his limited interaction, this person seemed to be a certain ethnicity and that his accent sounded like someone from the south of blank, of course. Interactions in Canada. In 1994, this person began attending a school, it looks like, in Ottawa. In 1999, they graduated from the school in a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science, and soon after graduating, began interviewing for jobs. One interview was with a certain location or company in San Diego. According to this person, they saw the job as opening on Monster.com and decided that San Diego was a nice place, so went to San Diego to interview. He was subsequently offered a job working on their website. He entered the U.S. on October 23, 1999 with an H-1B visa. He indicated that he got along well with the CEO of the company, but has not had contact with him of late. He states that he never knew Mokhtar Abdullah while he or Abdullah was living in Ottawa, even though they were both living there at the same time. He indicated that he only met Abdullah in San Diego. He stated that he lived at a certain place in San Diego. When he first arrived in Southern California, he described the apartment as a small one-bedroom. When questioned regarding whether he had a roommate or if anyone had stayed with him while he was living at the above address, he responded no, except for my wife later on. However, upon further prompting, he seemed to recall that from approximately January 2000 until April or May 2000, he had a roommate. He was unsure what his roommate's name was, but believed it to be blank, of course. He was a Saudi Arabian national who was attending an ESL program at UCSD. He was unable at such time to provide any additional information regarding this person except to say that he attended the Islamic Center of San Diego. He agreed to try to find out his whereabouts and let writers know. He was then asked about the following individuals and provided information thereto. Anwar Al-Laki. This person was familiar with the name and perhaps the individual, but did not know him well. He stated that Al-Laki was political and that he was not particularly interested in such things. He advised that he met with an individual in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, when they were both making the Umrah, along with 3 other individuals, and he had won a scholarship given out. He stated that other than in this context, he did not know or interact with these individuals. Mokhtar Abdullah. He stated that he knew Abdullah casually from the ICSD. He stated that no one introduced them, but that they simply met one time after prayers at the mosque. When asked, he stated that Abdullah had emailed him once since Abdullah returned to Yemen in May of 2004 about getting his college transcripts. He indicated that he did not respond to this email and has not heard from Abdullah since. He could not explain how Abdullah would still have his email address after spending 3 years in prison, except to say that it was an easy email address to remember. He offered that Abdullah would probably respond if he wrote an email to him, adding that he had heard Abdullah was reaching out to a lot of people in the San Diego community. He also could not explain why Abdullah would have had his phone number when Abdullah was arrested in 2001, only adding that they knew each other so it would be natural for him to have it. According to this person, Abdullah was always with a group of people and was a very gregarious individual. Now on to Omar Al Bayoumi. This person met Omar Al Bayoumi at the ICSD after one of the prayer sessions, but did not talk to him or did not know him well. Al Bayoumi, according to this person, did try and talk with him often, but this was almost always in reference to Al Bayoumi trying to sell him a business model. He could not recall what exactly was his business model, but he stated that Al Bayoumi was kind of different but could not elaborate. Everyone, according to him, noticed this difference. When questioned about Al Bayoumi's relationship to Khalid Al-Midhar and Nawaf Al-Hazmi, he stated that Al Bayoumi acted as if he was responsible for them and was always very interested in their affairs. He added that this was probably because Al Bayoumi had brought them to San Diego. He was not able to be more specific as to how Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar had been brought to San Diego from Los Angeles. He recalled on one occasion that when Al Bayoumi invited him to come over to Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar's apartment, he believed that this would have been in February or March of 2000. In addition to the 4 of them, there were some additional individuals from the ICSD. He believed that this gathering was a way to introduce Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar to the local community. At first, this person stated that Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar never visited his apartment. However, after some prompting, he stated that in fact they came over somewhat regularly to visit with his roommates. He added that there were often a lot of guys from the ICSD over at his apartment with Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar and Al Bayoumi. Despite such regular visits, he states that he did not know Al-Hazmi and Al-Midhar well or speak with them often. He described this group of males as very similar in situation. They were all around the same age, all students, and all attended the ICSD. He advised that he was unable to recall anyone else's name as he broke contact with them in the summer of 2000 after he got married. He stated that he changed apartments, stopped socializing with the group, and thereafter lost contact with everyone. He added that he does not remember that Abdullah was a part of the group and came over with them as well. It looks like they are giving him a list of individuals, and he states that he does not know them in this portion. Let's get down here. So writer subsequently questioned this person about calls he made from his telephone number, subscribed to a certain service during this time living in San Diego, and particularly he was asked about 7 calls between himself and Bayoumi in the first 3 months of 2000, and additional 5 calls in June of 2000. In the opinion of writers, this person became noticeably angered and stated that there were no calls with Al Bayoumi. Upon the insistence of writers that such calls existed, he remembered 2 individuals that stayed with him in his 1-bedroom apartment from the middle of December 1999 until the middle of January 2000, Imam Muhammad and Imam Khalid. So these are the 2 imams that Omar Al Bayoumi asked this person to let live in his apartment while they traveled, or while they moved to San Diego, or while they traveled to San Diego. Al Bayoumi asked if they could stay with him for a month, and he agreed. According to this person, the imams must have made those calls to Al Bayoumi, or Al Bayoumi must have been calling the imams. He added that a blanket that Al Bayoumi had loaned to the imam, or he added that it was also possible that he spoke with Al Bayoumi on the phone regarding a blanket that Al Bayoumi had loaned to the imams for their stay in San Diego. He stated that the imams had lost the blanket which was special to Al Bayoumi, and therefore Al Bayoumi was upset and calling him about it. He was also asked about the 2 calls received from and 1 call made to the telephone number, which we don't have, in March of 2000, and he responded that he does not know anyone in Yemen and would not have made those calls. Again, after repeated insistence from writers that such calls took place, he stated that it must have been his roommate, and he could not explain why a Saudi national would receive calls from or make a call to this Yemeni telephone number. He also then began to recall an argument he had with these people regarding a call to Yemen that cost something like $50. He could not provide any more information as to these phone calls. Finally, his question regarding any phone calls made to Dallas, Texas. He responded that he never called Dallas, but had been looking at getting a job there. Recent situation. This person left San Diego on the 9th of July 2006, driving with his family to St. Catharines, Canada. He drove because he wanted to take his family on a cross-country trip. He stated that he decided to leave San Diego because he wanted to open up his own business in a location where there would be less competition, and his visa was expiring at the end of the year. Soon after arriving in Canada, he started a company. In August of 2006, after leaving San Diego, he officially graduated from somewhere in with a Master's of Science in Computer Science. He had, however, finished classes earlier in the summer, adding that he had not been to San Diego since he left in July of 2006. In December of 2006, he learned that he had won a U.S. green card through the lottery system. He stated that he had originally applied for one while still living in San Diego in October or November of 2004, and he is currently planning on moving back to the U.S. before the end of October to ensure he keeps his green card. That is the end of this video. That is the end of the documents that we will be reading today. Thank you for listening to this hour-long reading of the documents that were released by the FBI pursuant to multiple investigations that they were conducted related to the September 11th, 2001 attacks, interviews with multiple Saudi Consulate officials as well as mosque members who had relationships with individuals named Anwar Al-Laki, Omar Al Bayoumi, Mokhtar Abdullah, Nawaf Al-Hazmi, and Khalid Al-Midhar, as well as multiple other individuals named in these reports. This information is very important. I'm very pleased if you have made it this far to have been listening to my information that I'm reading. If you'd like to read for yourself, this is available on the FBIvault.gov. Again, thank you for listening, and if you like the video, please comment, subscribe, and like. Again, thank you. I hope everybody has a great week, and I hope to post at least one more of these long-form reading videos throughout the week. So, thank you. Bye-bye.